Hello, everybody. I'm not really sure what to call this, other than a spontaneous connection with Jeff, who's down at BlackBerry World version 1, BlackBerry World 01, I suppose, the very first BlackBerry World, the continuation of RIM's annual conference that was formerly known as WES. So BlackBerry World, formerly known as WES, where there was a plethora of announcements that have happened over the last since the keynote, which was about an hour ago. And let's talk about what some of those announcements were. I think the first one we just got to get over with is that everybody who walked into those doors, who paid a ticket, whether they paid or not, who showed up and was a registered user of BlackBerry World gets a what?
A free 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi only playbook.
So that's, as we said, that's one way to get it into 6,000 hands, right?
Yeah, I can't complain about that. So
that's a pretty big, it's a pretty big gift from RIM, and good on them to do that, I suppose. You've got a captive audience. But that wasn't really the biggest announcement that came out of this morning. They had a special guest, which I think even took. I saw a post from T.A. McCann, who is the founder of Gist, and he was surprised. So I think everybody was surprised to see this guy walk out on the stage. Let's talk about that, man.
Yeah, so I mean, amongst the many announcements, I think for me the most impactful was when Mike Lazaridis announced that Steve Balmer was coming out on stage. And he gave up the stage to Steve Balmer for 10 or 15 minutes to talk, not only about Microsoft stuff, as he started off, but about announcing a strategic partnership that is going to go deep into the BlackBerry ecosystem with Bing. And so Bing is going to be the default search provider on BlackBerry. Bing Maps is going to be the default Maps application on BlackBerry. And Microsoft is going to work with RIM to really deeply integrate Bing and search within the RIM ecosystem and infrastructure. So when you go and voice search on BlackBerry, that'll be powered by Bing, and it'll launch a Bing search results. When you do universal search, it'll pull up universal search results via Bing. So it's a really wide-ranging and deep partnership that I think is going to have, you know, reverberations outside of just the BlackBerry world. Because not only did Steve come up on stage and make a few cracks about him liking Windows Mobile as well as BlackBerry, which was interesting and got a good laugh from the crowd, but that this is really showing that both Apple, who has been talking with Microsoft about integrating Bing in, and RIM have gone, well, you know what? Who's our biggest competitor right now? It's Google. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yep.
So let's be careful and not let Google own all mobile advertising and search results. Let's partner with the second player to make sure that there is some equal footing in the mobile world. So it's really interesting from Microsoft as well, because if they're going to be now powering BlackBerry, which we'll assume will level out somewhere around 20% of the market over the long term, and they're going to power Windows Phone 7, which let's assume gets between 10 and 20% of the market in the long term. Now you're talking 30+% of the market running Bing search. Now, what's Apple going to do? Apple doesn't have their own search, and I'm not sure that's really right up the alley of what Apple is going to create. They've partnered with Google so far, and there's rumblings that they would partner with Microsoft as well. So combined, they'd be able to have 50% plus of the mobile ecosystem running Bing searches and running on the Bing infrastructure, where Google then promotes their own stuff via Android. So I think it's an interesting alignment of the recognition that Android is doing really, really well. Android is taking a lot of market share away from BlackBerry, so we need to find a way to stop giving business to Google, who's taking it away from us.
It's almost too astute. Do you know what I mean? Like this is almost like the the political parties in Canada banding together to topple the government, right? This is really what we're about to see here. Is I like this because I don't like the monopoly that Google would have had in the mobile space. I just don't like that they can price things, they can do things without taking into consideration the market. But I wonder what the deal here is. At some point, these friends who are enemies, who are friends, cannot be friends forever. They must remain enemies because they compete in the hardware space. All of them do. But I guess it's one evildoer at a time. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's really got to pick your battles, right? And where do you think you can be successful at first? RIM has started off trying to fend off Android as a market. They have not been that successful at fending off the onslaught of Android. So what's the next market they can pick to fend off? Well, they can work with Microsoft on the search side, and RIM doesn't run any search stuff anyways, and they're not going to build their own search infrastructure. So just like Apple, RIM is in a case where they don't have a dog in the fight. They are involved in mobile advertising, but they're not involved in search. and they need a partner to come in and help promote that. And I think between looking at going with Google and saying, well, what's Google going to promote? They're going to promote Android because they have a vested interest in it. What's Microsoft going to promote? Well, they're going to promote Windows Phone 7, but Microsoft's such a large organization that mobile, search, Bing, all those things are divisions within a huge company. Now, while Google is huge, it's huge around one big thing, which is search. And everything they do is around generating search and generating advertising around that. So you can't say it's one division of Google, where you can say it is one division of Microsoft. Yeah. And I think Microsoft has shown in working with many partners that they can partner with people who may be competitors with them in one area, but have advantages to partnering with them in others.
I think it's a smart move for RIM. I think that it's obviously the smartest move that Microsoft can make, and I really think that this really does benefit Microsoft much more than it benefits RIM.
I think it's a huge checkbox on the validity checklist for Microsoft to say, yes, we're valid. We're partnering with an enterprise-focused company to get back into enterprises. Yeah. What were we missing? Well, Google is kind of trying to get into enterprises a little here and there. They had the Google Search appliance that goes in. They're trying to get that business. RIM is enterprise. Yeah. RIM has such a huge foothold in enterprise that it makes total sense for Microsoft to say, you know what, we have an enterprise customer base as well. Let's get together. We have complementary interests here. We'll both go into enterprise and show the benefits of working with Microsoft and RIM together. The weird thing is the whole, over the past 10 years, every 2 years there's some rumor of Microsoft buying RIM. Yes. But it's never really founded, and then there's never really any partnership between the two companies, aside from, the basic corporate partnerships that everybody has with companies together, but no strong ties which really bind the companies together. But this is following on the whole Microsoft cloud-hosted service that integrates with BlackBerries as well for accessing enterprise applications. So I think it's interesting to see that recently there's been much more of kind of acceptance of formal business relationships between the two companies.
Yeah, it could be a precursor. The whole thing about dating before you get married, and you've got at least with Nokia and Microsoft, you have Stephen Elop as that bridge, right? And they understand each other. There's a relationship there, and maybe this is the beginning of that. I'm not saying, we're just speculating, but I always thought that Nokia should have bought RIM, or RIM should have bought Nokia, and this is maybe a sideways way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's lots of ways in which Microsoft is now getting into mobile through partnerships, partnering with Nokia, partnering with RIM, partnering with other handset manufacturers to get Microsoft on board. And I think that what this is really showing is that, before Microsoft kind of went, let's do it all ourselves. Let's try and build an operating system, which we like to do, build it by ourselves, and they tried it twice and they were not successful at it.
No.
Now they're saying, okay, we're going to build an operating system again. We're going to learn from our failures, which is they're the best company in the world at doing that, at learning from past failures. Microsoft is, it's a backhanded compliment in that it obviously means they have failed in the past, but they're persistent. And they learn from what they did wrong, and they come back with a vengeance. And Windows Phone 7 is that comeback for them. And they're going, okay, not just is it a comeback in terms of what is the technical difficulties or what are the technical features of the operating system, but it's a comeback in the partnerships around getting the operating system out there and promoted and featured as the #1 handset manufacturer in the world right now is choosing to use Windows Phone 7. Yeah. Could there be any other way for them to say this is legit, this is a legit operating system that should power cell phones, by then having the #1 cell phone manufacturer choose to use their system?
Well, I'd like to see how this plays out a little bit more as we go forward. But what about any of the other news? That's obviously the biggest thing. Having Steve Ballmer share the stage, I don't think that's ever happened when another CEO of a company that's a competitor has ever gotten on stage at WES or BlackBerry World or anything else. It's usually been partners, so that's obviously great. Steve Ballmer's in the house. What else has been going on? We've got a couple more minutes to just anything else that you found significant? Product announcements?
I thought it was interesting that the whole. Not just this session, but the general session really highlighted the fact that there's two areas that RIM is focused on. Enterprise, we all know, half the conversation was about enterprise, then half the conversation was about social and entertainment. Yep. And it's this really interesting dichotomy that there's very few segments from that presentation which are both enterprise and social and entertainment. It's very broken up. You have the sales charts showing some performance on BlackBerry. You have the media guys coming up and showing media on BlackBerry. And then you have Facebook coming up and talking about social interactions with users. I think it's a really interesting way that RIM is kind of going and saying, we are in the enterprise, we're a huge enterprise space, but we know a lot of our customers, a lot of our strength is in social, and we really need to play up the aspects of the playbook. I thought they did a fantastic job of showing off the touch points of where people say, well, iPad, iPhone is really good because they have iTunes. Yeah. Well, RIM showed 7 Digital with 13 million tracks available on it. They showed Vimo. There was another app that was a video playing that was on it with thousands and thousands of videos on it. They showed a podcast app on it. Now, I'm not actually a fan of the design of the podcast app on Playbook, but the fact is they have it. They have a directory of podcasts that you can listen to. They're checking off all these checkpoints. They showed a video going on. They showed HD video loading on it, whether it was via podcast or preloaded or streaming off the web. They showed all of these ways of consuming media on it that after that presentation, you couldn't really go in and say, you know what, RIM doesn't have music or they don't have video. Yeah. You know, the solutions may not be quite as integrated as what iTunes is, but it is there, and it's Playbook only. You don't have to plug it into a desktop. You don't have to plug it into a Mac. You can use it by itself. I'm not saying it is the best solution possible. I'm not saying it's better than iTunes. What I'm saying is, I don't think anymore you can write a review that says massive negative for Playbook, no media functionality. That's just not there anymore.
That's good. Good news from them. You know, I think that they've been on a pretty aggressive release schedule for the product. You know, some quotes that have come out of this obviously is that Balsillie saying that the software is the key for this, and they seem to be on a pretty aggressive schedule to get it out and updated and up to date. We've seen a lot of demos, and I think that we should check in again in a day and see how things have progressed, and we'll follow up with what else is going on at BlackBerry World.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a plan. Jeff, thanks for your time, man.
Oh, great. Great to talk to you again.